When Getaway magazine offered Mike Copeland the opportunity of a trip from Cape Town to Cairo, plus a brand new TD5 Land Rover, he couldn't believe it. It was a dream come true. And his travelling companions were to be Getaway journalists Robin, Cameron, Justin and Don. This is the way to really see and get a feel of Africa. So come and join us for a 22,000-kilometre adventure. By the end of it, you'll want to do the same. The gnarled finger of rock that points out into the southern Atlantic Ocean marks the starting point of the journey, the Cape of Good Hope. And this token of its chilly waters will be taken far to the north to be poured into the Nile in Cairo. The first leg of the journey would take them from South Africa through Namibia into Lusaka in Zambia. So it was with a touch of sadness that Mike and Robin left the natural beauty of the Cape. And the Toys Kloof, as always, provides dramatic memories for every traveller to take with them. Once past the majestic mountains of the southwestern Cape, they were on their way, and Robin was quickly getting used to the unfamiliar controls of a camera rather than a computer keyboard.
In London and US bases in Afghanistan, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg called for a simultaneous minute's silence.
Today, we take into our hearts and minds those who perished on this site 1 year ago, and also those who came to toil in the rubble to bring order out of chaos. Now we join with our fellow Americans in a minute of silence, led by President George W. Bush from the South Lawn of the White House in Washington.
While South Africa may boast the most advanced road system in Africa, some stretches can be long, tedious and tiring. But thanks to modern technology, we whip through it at a speed. Getaway magazine were hosting a travel exhibition in Johannesburg, so this was to be their first port of call. Then they were on their own, with Africa in front of them. One of the truly great things on an experience like this is the people that you meet along the way. And they were hardly out of Joburg for their first encounter. Ruth Hollinger, a young lady who was travelling from London to Cape Town on a bicycle. Just when you think you've taken on a challenging project, you'll bump into someone who brings you back to earth.
See a bit of that? There's
So Robin and Mike decided to switch off the air conditioning and toughen up.
Op pad naar ver plek toe, dus op pad Cairo toe. Dit is van Getaway, tijdschrift Getaway, dit is ons eerste grenspost daar. Dit is de eerste grenspost zo.
Now, you may think that the route through Uppington to Keetmanshoop is a bit off the beaten track as far as going to Cairo is concerned, and you'd be right. But there was something that Mike wanted to do in Namibia that he'd always promised himself. If he could ever find his way there, as signage is not a high priority for the Namibian Roads Department. Good maps and compasses are vital on or off the beaten track, but they seem to be headed in the right direction and soon found their destination.
Yeah, the road's called 36, so we're just wondering if it's that same one. But I think it is.
Yes. Now I think, how far is it? A couple of
Like
k's?
500 meters.
All right, well, that's
Yeah.
it then.
You know, thanks. Thanks very much.
Sasriam in the Namib Desert near Sossusvlei is ideal for hot air ballooning. And in the half-light of dawn, the anticipation of their impending flight was punctuated by its preparation.
I need 2 persons in each compartment here. Two, and two. You have steps on the sides.
As soon as the balloon was filled and the gondola upright, they climbed aboard and were soon lifting silently into the indigo sky above the desert. And while Robin was keen to capture the attributes and actions of the pilot, Mike was left to wonder at the display beneath him. It's almost impossible to contemplate a world in conflict while surrounded by such beauty, peace and solitude. As with all good things, their aerial escapade was over all too soon, and they were brought back to reality with more than just a small bump. After the detour into Namibia to satisfy this personal passion, they had to make tracks via Etosha and Caprivi to get to Lusaka in Zambia, where Mike was due to pick up Cameron and say goodbye to Robin. The second leg of the journey would take in Zambia, Tanzania and Kenya. After the hellos and goodbyes at Lusaka, his new travelling companion Cameron and Mike made a quick inventory of necessary supplies, hit the Manda Hill shopping centre and headed north out of town on the optimistically, if not prematurely named, Cairo Road.
So this is Cairo Road, eh? It takes us all the way to Cairo?
All the way. Keep heading north.
Stuck in traffic on Cairo Road. So where are we heading to tonight, Mike?
A place called Fringilis. It's at Chisamba village. Very nice lodge, campsite, just north of Lusaka.
The Great North Road speaks volumes by its very presence. Now they were really getting into Africa, and with some vintage musical memories belting through the speakers, the soft south was slipping slowly but surely behind them.
Tell you.
So how was the flight up?
Oh, we had some big clouds coming in south of Lusaka.
Okay, turbulent.
No, not that turbulent, but just like when you're flying at 35,000 feet and you're totally snowed out and whited out, there's big thermals happening. Just keep your eyes open for that sign, Mike, because it must be around here somewhere. Kundalila. What do you think it's marked on the GPS? Kundalila Falls, 14 kilometers. Camping site. Yeah, it's might be quite a long 14 kilometers, man. Ah, the railroad. Compliments of the Chinese.
Tazara Railroad.
Just over 200 kilometers out of Lusaka, they drove through Serenge, just beyond which they turned off for Kundalila Falls, where a very friendly and cheerful Samuel showed them around. The magnificent falls taken in, a couple of hours later they headed off for their overnight stop at the Shiwa Ngandu estate. Having a bath takes on a whole new dimension here, and Cameron and Mike appreciated a good long soak in the natural hot springs that smoothed over the effects of the potholes and ruts of the Great North Road. Roadworks for the body and mind.
Come on in, Cameron.
How's the water, Mike?
Beautiful. Water bubbles up right through the sand.
So, like, what temperature? Like, hot bath? What?
Perfect bath temperature.
It's actually quite incredible because there's no sulfur at all, eh?
It's clear, clean, non-sulfurous. Perfect bath temperature.
It's 24 days we've been on the road. I landed in Lusaka 3 days ago. We've come north. Along the Great North Road. It's an excellent tar road out of Lusaka. We followed it all the way up, past Serenge, Mpika, taking the turning at Kapiri and Poshi here, obviously to go Serenge, Mpika, and we're now at a place called Shuanganda, as the locals say. Shuanganda is a set of hot springs here in Zambia. Our plan from now, in the next 4 days, is to head north, go through the border into Tanzania, and then head straight down to Dar, to Zanzibar, eventually from there. We don't want to hang out in Dar too long. It's a bit of a dingy city, but Zanzibar's it's worth the price of admission.
This unlikely stately home in the heart of the Zambian bush is owned by Sir Stuart Gore Brown and was modelled on the original family seat of Brooklands Manor in England. Surrounded by an enchanting but tragic history, it was built for a ladylove who unfortunately never had the pleasure of living there.
Sir Stuart did it in style.
Don't skip breakfast on a long journey, a golden rule of travelling. Also an opportunity to decide on the route onwards. Once again, they rejoined their old friend the Great North Road and shared the driving all the way through to Mbeya into southern Tanzania.
It's okay then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, cheers. Okay, the worst way?
This is going to be the worst way to enter a new country. No local money, in the pitch dark, bad road, trucks with no lights, pedestrians, bicycles. Don't know where we're going to stay tonight.
As they arrived, ate and bedded down at the Holiday Lodge Hotel, they could only dream about the creature comforts of the soft south.
This has got muzzy nets.
Muzzy nets? Yeah, but has it got muzzies?
And the pollutions. Da-da. Ooh, nice wallpaper.
For tonight we have homemade bread from Sheba and Gangu. Only the best bulk Gouda cheese from Lusaka. Beautiful ham. And this.
Mike and Cameron had now parted ways from their old friend the Great North Road, but were about to be introduced to a very close relative, the Tanzam Highway, which was to take them all the way to Dar es Salaam on the east coast, and in the company of some very original transportation.
How are you today? Okay. You have such beautiful vegetables here. What is the price? Onion, how much? All 500 shilling. Make a lovely salad with it. And
Beans.
so that's
Beans.
2,000. That's it. Brilliant. Okay.
Discretion being the better part of valor, they decided on a campsite for the night's accommodations, but not before stocking up with some wonderful fresh produce at Kizalanza Farm. There's nothing quite like chilling out on the banks of a river after a hard day's drive, and that's just what they did on the Great Ruaha at Baobab Valley.
So we're going to head north to Bagamoyo, or what do you think?
Bagamoyo would be a good option, yeah. Somewhere north of Dar es Salaam on the beach.
That shouldn't take us too long, yeah? Tonight we swim in the Indian Ocean for the first time.
Good morning, how are you today?
And you, fine.
Okay.
You're most welcome.
Are we going to fill her up?
Okay.
With roughly 200 kilometers to Dar es Salaam, Mike and Cameron made a fairly early start, They were getting more than used to the state of the roads, so the odd deviation off-road was becoming more commonplace, and the Landy was living up to her promises.
So the road was doing quite well up until now, eh? We hope.
Mike and Cameron had decided that rather than base themselves in Dar es Salaam, they would head for Bagamoyo, a little further north and nearer to Zanzibar. They were soon in tourist mode, paddling in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean and picking coconuts. A person can get very used to this sort of life. The sleepy facade of this old town belies its history as one of the main slaving ports on the east coast, where up to 50,000 souls were exported each year. More recently, it was Germany's East African colony, and now somewhat overshadowed by Dar es Salaam, its pace is more in keeping with its tourist profile.
Alrighty. This school was built by an Indian businessman, Siwa Haji, in 1892. First interracial school in Bagamoyo.
After a damp, restless night stretched out on palm logs, they made their way to the ferry point to catch an early morning dhow across the straits to Zanzibar Island. With formalities completed, which included an indemnity to all and sundry for acts of piracy, theft and drowning, they didn't have long to wait for the tide.
So Dion, how's the room, eh?
Small. It is, I would say, 2.5 meters by 2 meters.
That damp reminds you of home, eh? Cape Town.
It doesn't remind me of home. It reminds me South Africans are a bit larger than any of these locals.
Zanzibar is justifiably known as the spice island of Africa, and the heady aromas of cloves, nutmeg, mace, turmeric and cardamom fill the air, and the Persian baths and palace built by the Sultan of Oman in the early 1800s add to the mystique of the island.
Lemon rose. Do you get seed? No seed. It's not so strong. Even tasty.
Which one is this?
This one.
How old before it's...
Saffron's red.
No, but this isn't saffron. This is an alternative.
Instead of saffron.
Okay.
we use this because saffron is very expensive.
It's not a smell really,
Yeah,
it's
you
a
can
colour.
eat
Look
it.
at the colour on my
You
fingers.
can eat it. You grind this one, then you mix with honey, you put the place which you get a problem. After a few days later, the problem going away. And also our sister, they used to make their face to be bright and more beautiful. When they want to sleep, they take this, fresh turmeric, they grind, they mix with a part of egg. They put on their face when they want to sleep. Till morning, they wash it, and their face become bright and more beautiful.
So they will look like a Fanta.
And
They will look like a Fanta.
Fanta.
Cool drink. If they put it on their face, they will look like a Fanta.
Even the dulcet tones of Mr. Butterfly in the palms seemed to add to the local flavour. The spirit of adventure was running high, and Cameron and Mike decided to do a bit of their own exploration. And astride a trusty scooter, the popular means of motorised transport of the region, they set off on their own voyage of discovery. Mud, a blowout, and the heat of the day did not dampen their enthusiasm and fun. And to end the day, that time-honoured South African tradition of a sundowner on the terrace of the Africa House Hotel.
Africa House is a popular spot with visitors to Zanzibar. It is the spot to come and watch the sunset. And in a little while you'll see all the people lined up with their point and shoots. And as the sun goes down, flashes go. And you'll know it's sunset.
Transport formalities completed, it was back to the mainland, and there were some household chores to catch up on. Then it was time to move on, northwards to Arusha. After resupplying at the local store, they bumped into a bunch of guys who have a truly enviable job. They work at the brewery, and how could Mike and Cameron possibly refuse their kind offer of a tour around their workplace, which afterwards included a bit of quality control.
There's my chicken being delivered, which is now conveniently defrosted thanks to Tanzanian sunlight. We're going to open that in 2 seconds, get its giblets out and chuck a whole lot of garlic in it, probably chop an onion, put it in there. Because we're running a bit short of things we can put in chicken.
their campsite in Karatu, Cameron, alias the Khaki Chef, proved that his culinary expertise more than matched his literary talents and cooked up an evening meal that has now become legend.
One of the proud members of South African Breweries, the world's second largest brewer. We were lucky enough to go on a brewery tour today in Arusha, and they very kindly gave us, how many beers did they give us?
2 dozen actually.
2 dozen.
2 dozen beers, cheers.
You know, they make 18,000 beers in that plant a day, and they could give us a lousy 2 dozen. Actually, it was very good of them. We didn't ask, and they just said, hey, they gave us some stickers and some cool shirts, and this Nduvu hat, which is a brand of beer, means elephant in Swahili, Nduvu.
So Cameron, tell us about the progress of the meal now.
The progress of the meal. Well, the wood is kind of iffy, so we banged the chook on the coals quite early and we're cooking it quite fast. So it's going to have a crispy outside and a raw inside, would be my prediction. However, things are slowing down. The potatoes are cooking there. We've got this other little fire cooking on the side, and we've got cold Kilimanjaros. And if we drink enough Kilimanjaro, we won't worry about what the stuff tastes like at the end of the day.
Around this area is the southern end of the Great Rift Valley, the cradle of mankind, and it teems with wildlife. This is the famous Ngorongoro, a vast open savanna surrounded by the rim of a long-extinct volcano. Close by, between Lakes Natron and Manyara, is the Olduvai Gorge, whose museum holds exhibits of fossil remains of our earliest ancestors. Moving north, they entered the Serengeti Plains just below the Kenyan border. This is big cat country, where animals are truly wild and free. And it gave them a very real sense of the wilderness of Africa. While if you can afford it, there are some very luxurious campsites which their budget did not quite stretch to. The camp at Dik Dik suited them just fine for their needs to brush the dust off. And Cameron's Boy Scout skills were evidenced in the erection of the tent.
Dust here is very bad.
Thank you.
And what am I doing here is I'm essentially wasting my time because I'm going to drive about 20 meters up this road and I'm going to have to do this again. But what I'm doing is taking a little bit of the dust off my camera gear so that tomorrow's shot of the leopard eating the lion and the mating elephants.
The leopard eating the lion.
We have to have something dramatic.
Yeah.
It's all been done before. Of course, these lovely Maasai blankets that I'm working on here, these lovely red Maasai blankets, are very popular around here with Maasai people. And we were able to bargain them down quite significantly. We got 5 for $20, and they were starting at $8 a blanket, so we were pretty chuffed with that. And what we're going to do with 5 blankets, I'm not 100% sure, but it was nice to beat the Tanzanians at something.
They slowly negotiated a bridge displaying enviable 4x4 skills with a fully laden Land Rover. And not wanting to unnecessarily hurry things, headed off into the Masai Mara, which is home of the greatest live show on earth. herds of thousands of wildebeest, elephant, and never far from these, the predators of the rivers and plains, crocs and big cats. Lake Naivasha, just a short drive northwest of Nairobi, was a great place to base themselves for their last day of companionship and a frosty or two to relive the memories. It was now time to bid Cameron Kwaheri as he prepared to leave for home. Jumbo to Justin, who would accompany Mike through the rest of Kenya and Ethiopia.
That, folks, is that. For the next exciting episode, catch this channel.
The Landy was now headed north, through Kenya into Ethiopia, and a huge milestone in our journey, as here they cross into the northern hemisphere, and Justin wasted no time in getting into tourist mode.
So Justin, welcome to Kenya.
Thank you, Mike. It's good to be here. Beautiful Maasai blankets.
The roads and landscape in this part of the world were becoming a little rougher. Perhaps the local Samburu tribespeople knew something they didn't. A blowout put pay to their plans just outside Marsabit, the first sign of trouble in over 11,000 kilometers. Dirt roads and rain don't go well together, and how he's going to get out of that will take some time. With the other tyres looking decidedly the worse for wear, it was necessary to err on the side of caution. So they did a bit of an about turn and headed for Paradise Lake in the Marsabit National Reserve. You could be forgiven for thinking that this bears no resemblance whatsoever to a desert. But that is in fact what they were in, the Didar Galgalu Desert, the last natural feature before they entered Ethiopia at Moyale. The journey had taken them the course of the Great Rift Valley through Tanzania, Kenya, and now up through Ethiopia. They saw no evidence of the droughts and famine that ravaged the country in the 1970s. Just a green, fertile country with very industrious people. On Mike's travels, he's been drawn to local marketplaces. You can find out so much about people, how they live, and what they do. And the World Heritage Site at Lalibela, with its churches hewn out of the rock, was a prime example. Everything from chilies to cloth, honey to metalwork. One thing the Ethiopians don't have a lot of is petrol stations, so carrying that extra can is vital. Camel trains are quite common in this part of the world, and these are hauling salt, the currency of the desert, from the Danakil Depression on the Red Sea, which is a good 100 meters below sea level. The nightlife can get quite festive in Ethiopia, and Mike seems to have lost Justin for the moment. And what's this? Tolo? There's a distinct advantage in travelling with a handsome young man like Justin. Becoming young ladies invite you back to their place for a coffee. Well, so long as it's in the interests of furthering international relationships. Trahas, the young lady in question, prepares for the coffee ceremony. Green coffee beans gently roasted over charcoal, crushed, then boiled and served. Swiftly coming back to reality, Mike and Justin push on, now southwards for a change, through the Simien Mountains to Gondar, the Camelot of Ethiopia, a site of amazing medieval castles of King Fasidilas. And before Mike says cheers to Justin, there's still some time to visit the local marketplace in the capital, Addis Ababa.
How much is this?
Good price. Good price. I want your best price.
All right, 300.
300 is your best price.
I don't like it.
The final stretch would take them northeast into the barren deserts of North Africa. The navigator for the final leg up through the Sudan and Egypt is Don. And if Mike can tear him away from his viewfinder, they can be on their way. Retracing a few kilometers, Don gets the chance to familiarize himself with the local conditions and the area. And they head for Matima, through the Blue Nile Gorge, where they will cross the border into Sudan.
We're in Damascus, having just driven for 6.5 hours from Addis, on our way to Baghdad, which looks like we might reach it by this evening or late afternoon.
There was a heck of a valley we went through.
Ah yes, the Blue Nile Valley, Blue Nile Gorge, very nice.
There you go. So this is the source of the Nile. At dawn.
At dawn. Bananas? Bananas.
Just inside the border at Seshedi, they meet a Russian tourist who was kindly assisting a couple of South African cyclists, and a good excuse to stop for a bite of lunch.
Well, I came from Russia, so it took me quite a long time to get to Cairo, and this year I started from Cairo, then to Sudan, Wadi Halfa, and here I am.
Going the opposite way to us.
Yes.
How's the larder been performing?
Well, greatly. I don't know the English for the shocker.
Yeah.
Well, it was a problem, not far from Wadi Halfa, but now it's okay. And well, off we go.
When are you going to get to Cape Town?
I think next year, because we're planning to leave the car in Addis Ababa, go back to Moscow, well, spend there a year, and then come back. We don't have too much time for holidays.
See you in Cape Town.
Thank you.
Another day and another dawn, and they were in the Sudan and on their way to Al-Qadarif on a recently built new road, which had claimed yet another victim.
Is anybody hurt?
How are you?
Salam.
Fine. Where are they from?
We're from South Africa.
South Africa?
We're worried about you. Anybody?
The sky is still down.
Anybody hurt?
Yes, but I'm so sad. Where are they going?
Anybody hurt?
No, the three men stayed. Yes.
Unfortunately, they couldn't assist and had to press on for Khartoum. The sailing club in Khartoum presented the best option for their stopover, and refreshment was to be found in the clubhouse. The expression "send in a gunboat" has its origins here, as it was used to put down the Mahdi revolt in the late 1800s.
And we have so much still to see and so much distance to cover that I think we'll head straight up to Karima, Dongola, Aswan, Wadi Halfa.
The real problem is the ferry, though. Eh? I mean, it's very expensive. We don't know the price yet.
The problem is not the ferry, it's the cost of the ferry.
Yeah.
You'll get on the ferry will be there on Wednesday. It's just
$400 or maybe 600.
Swallow hard.
Time to dwell more on the present and discuss the route north. A simple thing to understand when traveling in Africa is that the roads don't necessarily get better, they get worse. And Mike and Don were soon back on the familiar gravel of the desert, which shows little mercy to modern transport. Another fact to bear in mind is the time of year. They were traveling during the holy month of Ramadan, and during the daylight hours, sources of food are very scarce, so they were thankful for sunset when they could break the fast with the locals.
Can't get any food before the sun sets in Sudan because it's Ramadan, and I'm hungry, right?
As the crow flies, or whatever flies in the Sudanese desert, Dunkula is about 450 kilometers north of Khartoum, and it was here that they crossed the Blue Nile for their final push to the Egyptian border at Wadi Haifa, where they would take the ferry the length of Lake Nasser to Aswan, a time for a bit of peace after the constant noise and bustle of the town. Aswan is the largest city in the south of Egypt, situated just north of the Tropic of Cancer, and after sorting out some documentation problems at customs, Don was soon soaking up the local flavor through the lens. And after the relative lack of facilities of the past couple of thousand kilometers or so, they were in for a bit of a culture shock. Egypt exists along the Nile, a very short distance to either the right or to the left, and you're in the desert. As the country also exists on the tourism trade, the authorities are somewhat over-enthusiastic about ensuring your safety. There are few superlatives that describe the magnificence of the temples at Luxor, and the floodlighting and evening call to prayer served only to enhance the dramatic effect. But Mike and Don were determined to break free from the constriction of the convoy, so headed northwest into the reaches of the inhospitable western desert. Time also to do the ET bit and phone home. Somewhere high above, a faithful satellite did the business. Talking of faithful, the end of Ramadan was called as we found ourselves in the ancient Bedouin oasis of Mut, and what a celebration it was. Deep into the western desert was our last stop before Cairo, Qasr al-Farafiyah. destination was now about 600 kilometers away to the northeast. Mike had been on the road for about 3 months, and the vast open spaces gave him a great opportunity for a little reflection. After only a small electrical problem and a blown tyre, perhaps they should be kissing the Land Rover rather than the 100-kilometre sign. In about an hour, they were in the outer reaches of Cairo, their journey's end. Tahrir Square. They had made it. 22,000 kilometres and 3 months of pure adventure. And now a few days to enjoy the sights and sounds of a city that never sleeps. To enjoy a civilization that spans some 7,000 years, and they still can't manage to get the lift to work properly. There again, a perfect world would be boring.
Where are you from? We're from South Africa.
Africa?
South Africa, do you know where that is?
South Africa?
Yeah.
Group Africa?
Yeah.
South Africa?
South Africa.
What's your name?
My name's Don, what's your name?
And my name is Mustafa.
You coming up the lift?
I am my home. This is my home, level 4.
Level 4, come, let's go.
I not come now, but shopping and...
Okay. It's an important switch. Now I'm going to press the button.
Let's see.
The button says the stop. Is that the stop? No, 8. Right, here we go. Just kind of whatever, I don't know.
Just try.
I think we're going to hit
switch. Okay, here we go.
You put your hand out.
One last thing to do, to join the water of the mother city with that of the mother of the world.